Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa kafa. Wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. Amma ba'd. Fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Walladhina jahadu fina lanahdiyannahum subulana. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursaleen. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Alhamdulillah, for another opportunity to sit and reflect upon the lives of the Sahaba. And truly, each time you sit here and I think about the Sahabi, it's just amazing how when you're reading the life of that particular Sahaba, you think like outstanding and amazing. And then the next one comes and outstanding and amazing. And there's no preferential treatment. It just highlights the quality that they had and how Allah Ta'ala took their qualities and they extended it. And they have such a wide range of qualities. And it's really inspiring just to read about their lives. Inshallah, I'll try to share some points in the brief time we have about Hazrat ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf radiallahu anhu. So first of all, his name, ዐAbdurraḥmān ibn Abd Abdurraḥmān ibn Abd ʿAwf ibn Abd ibn al-Harith ibn Zuhra. From the Quraysh tribe, Banu Zuhra clan. He was born about a decade after the year of the elephant. And it's interesting that Abdurraḥmān was not his original name, rather it was Abd Umar. Abd Umar, Abdul Kaaba has been mentioned. However, when he accepted Islam, then the Prophet ﷺ suggested that his name should be Abdurraḥmān. So the Prophet ﷺ named him Abdurraḥmān. As we know, he was one of the very earliest Muslims, part of the Sabiqun al-Awwalun. I mentioned even that he was number 8. And one of the Ashara Mubashara, those that were promised Jannah in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And he was invited by Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And we know how Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he took the dawah in his own and invited those that he knew. So along with Abu Ubaidah, Uthman ibn Mad'un and others, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu took him to the Prophet ﷺ to accept Islam. Even before, the Prophet ﷺ was in Dar al-Arqam, where he would be preaching and calling people towards Islam. So because he's one of the Sabiqun al-Awwalun, we know from the other lives of the companions that we talked about that his life after Islam was a life of change, hardship, sacrifice. And he shared with the others the persecution that they suffered for the sake of Allah. And just like many of the other companions, he actually had to migrate to Abyssinia. So he migrated to Abyssinia so he was able to practice his deen freely. And later on, when Allah Ta'ala revealed to the Prophet and the Sahaba to migrate to Medina, then he was one of those that left behind everything for the sake of Allah. And it's important to note, like we hear about these migrations, and we have to realize they gave up everything. Right? They gave up their land, they gave up their wealth, their belongings. So Abdurraḥmān ibn Awf, he arrived in Medina with empty hands, with nothing besides what he had carried with him. So the Prophet ﷺ, he instituted this thing called mu'akhat, which was like a brotherhood between a muhajir and ansari. And it's mentioned that he actually instituted this between two muhajirs before. Like in Makkah, there was this bond of brotherhood. And it's very important because when you look at it, they had left everything behind. And now they're coming to a foreign land. And they're not used to traveling. They travel for trade, but but to migrate, it's very difficult and very challenging. So this type of brotherhood that the Prophet ﷺ established, it's a very interesting point, because a lot of times when we come to a new community, we also feel like alienated and isolated. And this is one of the things that we can implement in our masajid or our communities, like how do we extend help to the new community member, or to the new convert, or anybody that is coming and does not have that type of network. One thing is that mashallah come and come for breakfast or come to the programs and start talking, but many times the person escapes the view. But if we have something where there is some specific person or a specific group of people, something to think about for our communities, that would we be following this type of system that the Prophet ﷺ had instituted in Medina, this brotherhood. So he was linked with Sa'd ibn Rabi al-Ansari, anhu. And the sacrifice of the Ansar were amazing as well. And Sa'd anhu was actually one of the wealthiest companions of the Ansar. So he had suggested that to ʿAbdurraḥmān anhu that he should take half of his property and his family. So what an offer, right? But what is the response of ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf anhu? He says, guide me to the marketplace. Guide me to the marketplace. Jazakallah khairan, barakallah fi ahlik wa malik, but guide me to the marketplace. So he went to the marketplace and he started doing business, right? And made some profit, mentioned of some dry yogurt and butter he was selling and trading in that. And he was consistent in that for a few days. So then the Prophet one time, shortly after that, passed by him and saw that he was wearing some clothes that was stained with some yellow dye, some perfume. So the Prophet asked, what is this, O ʿAbdurraḥmān? He said, O Allah's Messenger, I have married an Ansari woman. The Prophet asked, what have you given as mahr? He, ʿAbdurraḥmān, said, a piece of gold about the weight of a date stone. Then the Prophet said, Awlim walau bishatin. Give a banquet even though it be a sheep, right? The walima, give the walima. So he worked hard and he was able to financially support a wife, and he married very shortly afterwards. So he tried. He did not accept just taking the wealth of somebody else, rather he put his own effort in. And in due course, ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf became a very wealthy trader. And we'll get back to that shortly. So in Medina, as we know, the Muslims were not able to rest, and they were engaged in jihad for the sake of Allah. And ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf did not sit back in any of these. He participated in Badr and all of the major campaigns alongside Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's mentioned in the Battle of Uhud that he was one of those that stood firm when everybody had weakened the resolve and there was a retreat that had happened when the army was attacked from the side. And after the battle, it said that he was left with more than 20 wounds. Some of them so deep that a man's hand would fit in them. The wound was so deep that you can put your hand in there. That's how big it was. He was injured on his leg, due to which he had a limp. And his two front incisors fell out as well. Right, so this is the reality. Sometimes you think, you imagine the person, the personality that we have of the Sahaba and how they are amazing. But reality, they were injured, they were lame, they had all of these proofs that they were in the path of Allah. Right? They had all of this. So this was at Uhud, which was one of the earlier battles. ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf, anhu, he was also sent as the head of some expeditions. So it's mentioned in Dawmatul Jandal that he was the head of 700 mujahideen. And this was in 6 Hijri. He stayed there for 3 days, inviting them to Islam, right? Because that was the goal of these campaigns, to protect deen and also to propagate deen. So he stayed there, and there was a Christian tribe over there. And the chief of the tribe, al-Asbagh ibn Amr al-Kalbi, actually accepted Islam. Along with that, a great number of his tribe. And those that did not, they chose to give jizya. So ʿAbdurraḥmān, he used his knowledge of the deen, and he was very skilled in leading the army, and they were successful, and the people had accepted Islam. Then we see, as far as other battles, in the Tabuk campaign, he had a very unique honor. So not only did he participate, this was one of the last ghazwa that the Prophet ﷺ had participated in towards the end of the mission. And he had a unique honor that no other companion has had. So this is related from Mughīrah ibn Shu'bah, who was there at that time, that he narrates that the Rasulullah ﷺ went to relieve himself in the field before Salatul Fajr. So I took a utensil filled with water for him. When Rasulullah ﷺ returned to me, I began pouring water from the utensil on his hands. He washed his hands 3 times and thereafter washed his face. Then he tried to uncover his forearms from the jubbah, but the sleeves of the jubbah were too tight. So he pulled out his hands and exposed his arms from beneath the jubbah, and then washed his arms up to the elbows. He then washed over his khufs, then he came back. And this is the process of making wudu with the help of Mughīrah ibn Shu'bah. Then Mughīrah narrates, so I came back with him only to find that the people had put ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf ahead, who was leading them in salah. He was leading the entire army in salah at that time. Rasulullah ﷺ made one of the 2 rakahs. So he prayed the second rakah with the people. After ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf made salam, Rasulullah ﷺ stood up to complete his salah. Subhanallah. This alarmed the Muslims. Who began reciting tasbih in great abundance. They didn't know how to handle the situation. Like, Subhanallah, Subhanallah. But after the Nabi ﷺ completed his salah, he turned to them and said, you have done well. Or he said, you have acted correctly. And then he applauded them for performing salah on time. So this honor of Abdurraḥmān ibn Awf to lead Nabi ﷺ in prayer, subhanallah. Could there be any higher honor than this? That leading the Imam al-Anbiya, the best of creation, in prayer? Subhanallah, this honor is for Abdurraḥmān ibn Awf, subhanallah. So he had so many qualities, and we see so many things in the battlefield. But the jihad that Abdurraḥmān ibn Awf practiced in battle was considered insignificant. Insignificant after all of these things, compared with the jihad that he practiced with his wealth. This is what he is known for. But I want to highlight that the Sahaba had so many qualities. It's just that one quality became so dominant, but they were excelling in every quality. They were in the battlefield. He was adept commander. That's why he led a battalion. Right? And now we'll see that his wealth is what he's known for. And what happened regarding this? Once Rasulullah ﷺ, he wanted to equip a battalion to go on a mission. So he stood among the companions and said, I need you to give in charity so that I can send an expedition. Right? This was the call. This was the call by the Prophet ﷺ to spend in charity to equip the army. Abdurraḥmān radiallahu anhu went off to his home and returned in great haste, saying, Rasulullah, I have 4,000 dinars, 2,000 of which I'm giving as a loan to my Lord, meaning he's going to spend in charity, and 2,000 of which I am leaving for my family. The Prophet ﷺ answered, Barakallahu laka fima a'tayta wa barakallahu laka fima amsakta. May Allah bless you in what you have given in charity, and may Allah bless what you have kept for yourself. So this was a need that the Prophet ﷺ had to ask the companions. And the companions, they took that to heart. Whatever they had, they gave. And then he received this dua. Right? This dua of Allah bless him in what he has given, and Allah bless him what he has kept for himself. The dua made by the Prophet ﷺ to bless the wealth of Abdurraḥmān continued to affect him for as long as he lived. You just need one dua. Right? We say the power of dua. Right? The dua at the right time, with the right conviction, with the right circumstances, it can set you up for life. It can set you up for life. So Abdurraḥmān, he acknowledged this. He would say later, لَقَدْ رَأَيْتَنِي لَوْ رَفَعْتُ حَجَرًا لَوَجَدْتُ تَحْتَهُ فِضَّةً وَذَهَبًا. He said that from that time the material world had opened up its doors. And became so fortunate that I almost expected to find gold and silver every time I turned up a stone. Every time I turned a stone, I expected to find something underneath. His business grew in leaps and bounds, with his caravan departing and returning to Medina, bringing for its inhabitants wheat, flour, oil, cloth, utensils, perfumes, and everything that they needed, right? He would bring back everything that they needed in Medina, and then the caravan would leave again, carrying what they wished to sell from their produce in the industry. And he became the wealthiest of the companions. And I don't like to label, because sometimes, you read this and it's a little bit disconnected from our world, because we don't like to label, our companions with the labels of the people of the dunya that they have now, because it's so much materialistic. If we want to say he's a billionaire, right? The moment you say billionaire, you have this impression. But relatively, he was a billionaire, right? He was the wealthiest of the companions. Or you can say like serial entrepreneur. So I don't like to use that because it's such a negative connotation. But that's what it's meaning, that whatever business venture he went through, he was successful in it. He had barakah in. So what did he do with this wealth? Did he just keep it? Or did he just say, well, mashallah, this is, the wealth that I have, and I can now use it upon myself? As we know the answer. How did he spend his wealth? He spent his wealth in mobilizing armies, feeding the poor and destitute, and fulfilling the needs of those in hardship. He gave it to everyone he could, openly and in secret. It was even mentioned that all of Medina had some share in the wealth of ʿAbdurraḥmān. Either there was loaned to him, they had loaned them, or he had paid off their debts, or he had given them in charity. Everybody had a share in that, and we'll see. What did he do during the lifetime of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Several occasions. First, he gave half his wealth in the first incident where he got the dua. Another time, another mission came. He gave 4,000 coins in charity. Another time he was asked 40,000 dirhams. Another time was asked 40,000 gold coins. These are all different expeditions he was asked to give, and he gave. Furthermore, in another expedition, he himself mounted 500 warriors, mujahideen, on the horses laden. The horses and the mujahideen were armed and equipped by Hazrat ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf. Another time, 500 soldiers on camels in the path of Allah. So any time a need was there, he was ready. He was ready to give. As mentioned, in one day, he bought the freedom of 30 slaves. Subhanallah. So when Rasulullah left this world, ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf undertook the responsibility of providing for the widowed mothers of the believers. And this was what he was known for as well. He took that upon himself to take care of the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen financially. So it's mentioned in Musnad Ahmad, from Bakr bint al-Musawwir, that Abdurraḥmān ibn Awf sold the land of his to Uthman ibn Affan for 40,000 dinars, which he distributed among the needy of the Bani Zuhra, which was his tribe, the Muhajirun, and the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen. Then it's related that Musawwir relates, I came to Aisha with her share. Who sent this, she asked. Abdurraḥmān, I replied. She then said, truly, I heard Rasulullah ﷺ saying, indeed, Rasulullah once addressed all of his wives, saying, no one will care for you after me, except for those who have great patience. May Allah Ta'ala grant Abdurraḥmān ibn Awf drink from the sanabil of Jannah. And so he took upon a great important need, right, the widows. And he also got the dua of Hazrat Aisha. So what we can get out is there are certain opportunities that come up. And you have to seek out those things. Sometimes they come to you. Sometimes they are, it's very clear. The ask is given. And then we're trying to give at that time. But then many times you have to kind of dig deep. You have to go in and say, where can I invest? Where can I give? And this is just for the dunya as well. One thing is there's certain stocks, there's certain investment that is very clear and obvious. And then there's the ones that have great return, but they're not so obvious, right? So you have to also find those things. How can I spend my wealth in a way that I can maximize my return? Right? So sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not so obvious. So you take that opportunity and go. So the widows of the community, there's so many elements of our community that we don't even have a pulse on. Who's really in need, right? Who can work, who can't work, who's working but is not able to sustain themselves, they still need additional help, right? Who are the widows? Like, do we have a pulse of that? Part of what we can learn from his life is that he was looking into all of these things. And for the wealthy amongst us, we also have to take that into account. So it's mentioned that one day, the caravan ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf was coming back to Medina. And there were 700 camels in that caravan. 700. And this great number of camels, all laden with food and goods, made such a rumbling as it entered the city that the ground shook and the noise could be heard everywhere. You can hear the rumbling. One time I was in Masjid Nabawi and I was praying. All of a sudden I heard this rumbling. It's like, it's kind of scary. Like, what is this? Is it an earthquake or something? They had opened the gates. And people were running for the Roda. That was many years ago. And when I think of rumbling, it's like, there's like the commotion of the thousands of people that are running. So here, 700 people were running. 700 camels were rumbling in the city. So Hazrat Aisha asked, what is making all that noise? She was told it was the caravan ʿAbdurraḥmān. 700 camels carrying wheat, flour, and food. So she said, may Allah Ta'ala bless that which He has granted him in this world, but the reward of the hereafter will be far greater. So before the caravan came to a halt and the camels had knelt down, somebody had gone off to tell ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn Awf what Hazrat Aisha had said. As soon as he had heard it, ʿAbdurraḥmān rushed off to see Hazrat Aisha and said, I call you to witness, O mother of the believers, that this entire caravan, including its contents, saddles and blankets, is now all property of the Muslims for Allah's sake. Subhanallah. I mean, those that are in business and know, you have this deal. You made a sweet deal, and you worked so hard for that deal, right? And then it's coming to you, and finally, the profit is there. What do? Now you think about how you're going to use that money. Naturally, you put so much effort, but look at what he did. 700 camels, huge amount, all for the sake of Allah. That's not easy to do that at all. You get some money, you get some change when you sell your house, when you sell your business, when you have a good deal. How much of that money will be? Maybe 10%, right? If at all. Zakat is there. Even more than even the zakat, like, mashallah, I paid the zakat. I mean, that's required, right? Maybe you can give a little bit more. Did we ever consider it's possible to give more than that? It's possible to give 50%, 100%. We have precedent in our Sahaba, right? We want to emulate them to the best of our ability. So make that a goal that whatever I receive from this deal, this is all for the sake of Allah. So there's so many, these are very few highlights of his wealth and how he spent in the path of Allah. But I want to highlight the Sahaba were completely, they were all-rounders. They had so many good qualities. There's a few other things I wanted to highlight. One, that Hazrat ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn Awf, he was one of the 6 members of the Shura, handpicked by Khalifa Umar ibn al-Khattab to elect the next Khalifa. So one of the 6. And Hazrat Umar instructed the Shura to make their selection within 3 days. And the panel consisted of Uthman, Ali, Sa'd ibn Waqqas, Talha, Zubair, and ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn Awf radiyallahu anhum. These 6 great eminent Sahaba, all Ashar Mubashara. After numerous lengthy discussions, the Shura was unable to reach a unanimous decision. Then ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn Awf, what did he do? He proposed that one name be withdrawn to resolve the matter. One name be resolved, be removed. And he gave it to the panel. Hazrat Talha was not in the panel. He was out of Medina at that time. Receiving no response, he withdrew his own name. Right? He withdrew his own name. He did not want to take the burden of being the Khalifa, so he withdrew his own name. The remaining members agreed that he could make the decision. So he removed the name, his own name, and now all the other Shura members, they said that you can make the decision regarding who can be the Khalifa. So thus the burden of choosing the next Khalifa fell upon ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn Awf. Subhanallah. So then he consulted with each member individually, except for Talha, who I mentioned was not present in Medina. And he heard their opinions. Hazrat Uthman, he had proposed Ali radiallahu anhu's name, while Ali radiallahu anhu proposed Hazrat Uthman's name. Zubair and Sa'ad radiallahu anhuma were in favor of Uthman, and then he started consulting with the other senior Sahaba, because Hazrat Umar was injured, right? All the senior companions had come to Medina at that time. Finally, after the 3 days, ʿAbdurraḥmān radiallahu anhu came to the Masjid Nabawi, and the entire masjid was filled in order to hear the name of the new Khalifa announced. ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf radiallahu anhu first made dua for a long time, and that said, "People, I have pondered a great deal over the matter of Khalifa, of Khilafah, and met with different people and sought their opinions. I hope that none will differ with my decision." After this, he called Uthman radiallahu anhu and said, "Promise that you will practice upon the book of Allah, the sunnah of his Rasul, and upon the ways of the two great ones," meaning Hazrat Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhuma. Uthman radiallahu anhu said, "I shall do this according to my knowledge and ability." After taking this promise, ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf radiallahu anhu took the pledge at the hands of Uthman, the very first person to take the pledge. The moment ʿAbdurraḥmān radiallahu anhu pledged his allegiance, people came from all sides to Uthman radiallahu anhu and began pledging allegiance. In this way, Uthman radiallahu anhu was appointed as the third Khalifa. So he had a major say in appointment of Hazrat Uthman as the Khalifa. So we see that his knowledge and his leadership was very exemplified here, and the Sahaba, they looked up to him because of his ilm and taqwa. So we don't really talk about the ilm and taqwa of ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf radiallahu anhu, but he was extremely knowledgeable, as you can see that of how he handled the situation. It's mentioned about him that he was one of the few people who will be consulted on religious matters in Medina while the Prophet ﷺ was still alive. Right? So people would go to him for fatwa. People would go to him for answering their questions. So, see, the wealth was there, but he was learning the deen, and he was teaching the deen, and he was propagating the deen, all these different aspects. It's mentioned about him also that he was the Amir of Hajj. And he had the honor of being the Amir of Hajj in all three of the first three Khalifas, meaning Hazrat Abu Bakr, he appointed him as Amir of Hajj. Another time, Hazrat Umar also appointed him as Amir of Hajj. And also Hazrat Uthman radiallahu anhu appointed him as Amir of Hajj. So he was Amir of Hajj in all three of the Khilafas. As far as his taqwa, one story, which is something that you find amongst all the Sahaba, and I've mentioned it here too about other Sahaba as well, how the zuhud was. We saw his zuhud already in his leadership, that he did not want leadership. He refrained from leadership. Usually when you have wealth, leadership comes with it, or you want leadership. But we can see that he removed his name from leadership position, and he was always trying to avoid leadership. So food was brought to ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf one day while he was fasting. So he looked at it, and he reflected, and he commented, and he said, "Musab ibn Umair was killed, and he was better than me. And sufficient cloth was not found to shroud him, except one shawl, which didn't cover his head and his feet. Hamza then was also killed, and who was better than me? And sufficient cloth was not available for him except a shawl. I fear that our good deeds have been hastened to us in the worldly life." After that, he began to weep and he left his food. Right? So he recognized that, am I getting all the reward now? So we always say, "Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana." And we really want that hasan in the dunya. We really want it. Right? And the akhirah, it could come, but we want it here first. Subhanallah. It's like the Sahaba had a very different approach. Any type of hasana, wealth, material wealth, they felt that, is this going to decrease my rank in the hereafter? Is this going to be making me accountable on the Day of Judgment? That's why the wealth that came to them, it was like amana. I have to give it away. I can't keep it for myself. When ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf radiallahu anhu was about to die, he freed many slaves in his possession. And he left a legacy of 400 dinars of gold for each of the survivors of the Battle of Badr. because he was looking out for the people. And the Battle of Badr, as we know, they had a very special status. And many of them, as we see Hazrat ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn Awf himself, he had a limp. It was extremely difficult. So many of them, after a while, they were not able to, they would have bodily injuries, and that would be affecting them. So he left a legacy of 400 dinars a go for each of the survivors of Badr. At that time, there were about 100, and they all came to collect it. Besides all of this, so he gave to Ummahat al-Mu'minin, he took care of the Badreen, he took care of Bani Zuhra, he took care of the poor people. Did he leave anything for his heirs? Even after all of this giving, he left for his heirs wealth that was too vast to count. He bequeathed some 100 horses, 1,000 camels, and 3,000 lambs to his heirs after giving away everything. Subhanallah. And the bars of gold and silver, which were divided amongst his heirs, needed to be cut apart with axes. And it took so much effort that all these cutters' hands were sore from the job. He had so much gold and they had to divide it up that the hands of the cutters were sore because it was so much wealth. And all of this was the grace of the prayer which Rasulullah ﷺ had made for Allah to bless the wealth of ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn Awf. Right? So he recognized that, and this is what we can see. And we see different companions that the Prophet made dua for. And they became, so great with that particular quality due to that dua. We know Ibn Abbas, and we heard the story that the Prophet made dua for him to learn the book, knowledge of the book, and he became the greatest mufassir. Right? So this, like this, the dua of the Prophet for ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn Awf became very valuable. It affected his life. So after a life filled with sacrifice, he passed away in the year 31 Hijri at the age of 75. Khalifa Uthman ibn Affan who performed the janazah, and Ali escorted the funeral procession. And he said, while he was doing that, اذهب فقد أدركت صفوها وسبقت زيفها يرحمك الله. It's like, you have reached the real life now. And you have left behind that life which is fake. It's a deception. May Allah Ta'ala bless you. This was the parting words of Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu. So from this great Sahabi, we learn so many lessons about sacrifice physically. We learn financial sacrifice. We learn about the ability to lead and the ability to look out for opportunities. And the more that we try to emulate the companions, the more that we'll be closer to Allah Ta'ala. So we ask Allah Ta'ala for ability to benefit what has been said, and we ask Allah Ta'ala to grant us ease and comfort in this world. Inshallah. Ameen. We'll do a little bit dhikr, and inshallah we'll make dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salawat. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك وسلم. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك وسلم. صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد. الله ولي الذين آمنوا. الله ولي الذين آمنوا. الله ولي الذين آمنوا. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Inshallah, we'll end the dua request from our sponsor today. MashaAllah, beautiful dua that we'll make. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala shaykh al-anbiya wa mursalin, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa sallim. Ya Arhamar Rahimeen, Ya Arhamar Rahimeen, Ya Arhamar Rahimeen. Ya Allah, Ya Allah. O Allah, keep our iman very strong, Ya Allah. And keep the whole family, Ya Allah, in the righteous path, and make our hearts into ones that love to obey Allah. Ya Ameen. O Allah, keep our progeny on the straight path and hold us to this deen until Qiyamah. Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. O Allah, Ya Allah, give complete shifa to all those who are sick. O Allah, forgive our grandparents, parents, and forefathers for all the sins they have committed, and reward them in the greatest measure in this dunya and the akhirah. Ya Rabbal Alameen. O Allah, provide halal earnings filled with barakah and open our hearts to spend in for causes. Ya Rabbal Alameen. O Allah, allow us to emulate ʿAbdurraḥmān ibn ʿAwf and the wealthy Sahaba, Ya Rabbil Alameen. O Allah, allow us to find those causes, Allah, that are under-supported, Ya Allah, and to make a unique contribution, Ya Allah. O Allah, give us the tawfiq, Allah, to find those causes and the support for the sake of Allah, for the sake of you, Ya Rabbil Alameen. O Allah, we ask you for ease and comfort in this world, Ya Allah. We ask for afiyah, Ya Rabbil Alameen. O Allah, we acknowledge the sacrifice of the Sahaba, Ya Allah, and they are our elders, they are our examples, Ya Rabbil Alameen. O Allah, we ask you to lighten the burden on us, Ya Rabbil Alameen. O Allah, the sacrifices that they made are so intense, Ya Rabbil Alameen. O Allah, lighten the sacrifices that we have to make, Ya Allah. Yet we still want to earn your pleasure, we want to earn your reward, Ya Rabbil Alameen. O Allah, give us tawfiq, Ya Allah, to use our resources, to use our energy and our brain and our intellect, Ya Allah, and our wealth, Allah, for good causes, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, allow this, the fikr to continue with our progeny, Ya Allah, and our family, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, allow us to be a model community that can exemplify deen to this world, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, accept us for the sake of deen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.